Hey guys, it's Biggs, back today with another great video. I'm going to talk to you guys all about all the stuff that's around me today. I'm back at Species Canada, and we're bringing my good friend Ivan on board, and he's going to tell you how to do a completely DIY, economical terrariums to meet the needs of any animal you want to keep. So stay tuned. All right, Ivan, you got to tell us. I've been coming here for a while now, and I've been absolutely blown away by these terrariums. They're easy. You make them yourself. You can make them to fit any enclosure, any space you want, any animal you want. They're so utilitarian. Like, I'm absolutely blown away. I see people spending hundreds of dollars on these different special pet store terrariums, and honestly, sometimes they'll meet the needs of the animal, and sometimes they won't. But these things, you can tailor these to anything you want.
Nice idea, yeah.
So
most of the time.
You got to tell us about these things. Like, how did you come up with doing these?
First is that we used to buy those PVC cages, like those pre-made ones and whatnot.
Like Visions type cages and
the
stuff?
Vision ones, yeah, like the one that is actually heat molded.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, what happened is it get pretty pricey, up to a point that we're buying like 2 or 3 of them that it turned out to be like maybe around $1,500 for all 3 instead of $500 plus the shipping and everything like that.
When you start going to a collection this size, it gets way too cost prohibitive.
And the bad thing is with those guys right there, they only have so much of the space on the very top for ventilation, and most of the time either the ventilation is in the back, or the ventilation is in the side, or the ventilation is in the top, but just a small one to actually for you to fit, let's say, a heat on it.
Well, I noticed back in the days, like, you could buy those ones from like Zoomad or Hague and stuff, all those different terrariums. They're all different dimensions and all different sizes, but the entire top is wide open. So if you want to keep like a real jungle animal with real high moisture content, makes it very challenging.
It will.
You know, I noticed they came up with different lights that fit half of it, and you can add on things like Mist King systems like you have on a lot of your jungle type terrariums and stuff, and that's good. But you want to control it a little bit. So I noticed that some of your ones that are arid type environments, you've got full open tops, and some that are jungle, you got kind of half tops and stuff. So you can control it completely, make it whatever you want it to be.
Exactly. Yes, yeah. And most of the time, either whatever it is going to, like, let's say amphibians, we do 80% or 100% sometimes that we've needed to.
Yeah. Cool. So let's take a look at some of the terrariums.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, this big enclosure, this is one of the newer ones that you'd built, and you built this for a couple of very special animals that you were getting in.
Yes, yeah, we did. They're for the Europlatus giganteus,
which is the biggest Madagascar gecko, correct?
It is, yes, yeah. So they're the biggest gecko, biggest Europlatus in that species in general.
Well, I've seen them. We did a video on them, and they're all of like 13, 14 inches in size. They're absolutely massive. Now, Madagascar it's rainforest, but it's not really a wet forest, right?
No, it's not. So they go through cycles of 6 months and 6 months. So they're not very, very wet, but they can be really wet at times.
Seasonally,
exactly.
Okay. So this is very. So tell me a bit about the construction, how you came up with the design, how you ended up with where we're at today. Because I noticed that almost all the new ones are all very similar in design. So you've probably gone through several different stages of design and say this works, this doesn't work, and you've modified it. But now you've got it all dialed in.
Exactly. Well, right now they're pretty good. Like, it's still gonna be a lot better if I can do a little bit more, maybe tweaking here and there in terms of the design itself, because there's still a few things that I'm not happy with, but
well, this is just dimensional lumber.
It is. So it is just 1x2. I use 1x2 square pines. Like, they're rectangle most of the time, anyways. But they're the true 1x2, because most of the time when you buy from any hardware store, it's actually 3/4 by 1.5. So this one here is true 1 inch by 2 inches. So it's a lot better for me, so I can actually put the angles on.
Well, they look nice and uniform. You've built all the front venting all the same in all the cages. Depending on the animals and maybe even also the prey source inside, you've either put nylon mesh on top and for venting, or you've used metal, I guess, because there's something that's going to be. So you can make a nice arid environment like this. It's got acrylic doors. It's got those little tiny 3M easy peel little door handles, which are easy to take on and off. They're unobstructive. It rides simply on a nice channel. Now I noticed on some of them, you have these little ports. I noticed there's ports on the bottoms of these ones, so I'm assuming this has something to do with moisture.
Those are for where we drain the water in. So it's very intrusive for us to go inside and then lift a portion of the substrate and then go from there.
Okay.
Because there is a floating substrate right about 2.5 inches for the bottom in here. So the water has been collected in the bottom, and then from the top, from here to here, it's all basically substrate.
So you're using those hydro balls, the clay balls?
Yes, most
Okay.
of the time I do, but right here I do a substrate, a different medium. So right in the very middle is where I have basically a pile of charcoal, and then right on the top is basically where the substrate layer starts.
Okay.
So I don't have anything in the bottom other than the pile of charcoal in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it seems to be working really, really well for you.
Yeah.
And you're using, this looks like you're using polyurethane glue. Which is
Polyurethane
easy
glue.
to work with.
Yep.
It's completely non-toxic. It's inert once it's dry. And you've left them all natural, but like if you wanted to, each one of these could be rubbed down with a stain and a varathane.
Exactly.
You could make them into nice furniture and make them all like they all blend together. Doesn't matter what dimensions the cages are built in. You want it depending. He builds the cages depending on the animal he wants to house. These are two brand new ones. These are the brand new lizards that you guys just got in. You've got like a webcam that you can watch the animals at night because these geckos, I believe you said, were from Australia.
Yeah, and she's currently gravid right now. We think anyways. So,
So these ones we want to leave completely alone. Just leave them alone and
Yep.
let them do their thing.
So we can see if at nighttime later on, because they're nocturnal, so
Yeah.
we can see if she laid eggs or not.
So after the design of the cage, what are the walls of the cages made out of?
So this, we used to use just regular corrugated plastic before.
Yeah, they call it chloroplast, I believe, right?
Chloroplast, yeah. And the bad thing about chloroplast is because...
So this would be chloroplast. It
yeah,
looks like cardboard.
this one is the chloroplast
Yeah.
one. That's why I haven't even finished with this one right here because I'm planning on redoing the whole sides. But the chloroplast, the bad thing about chloroplast is that silicone wouldn't attach into it.
Yeah.
So
The other fact is chloroplast, I've seen people use it in greenhouses, and it's not UV stable.
it is not.
So
UV.
with reptile light bulbs emitting UVB rays, sometimes that product will start to disintegrate.
It will. Yeah, exactly. Especially if you have UVB that is around maybe 10.0 or 12.0 because we use Arcadia.
Yeah.
So Arcadia goes by 12, so 6 and then 12. So if you use any 12, you can see that the very top layer where it actually most UVB is hitting, you can see that it started to go yellow.
Yeah.
It's because of the fact that the UVB is being absorbed by the material itself. And the material is actually oil-based. That's the reason why nothing sticks to it.
Yes.
And because having an oil base, the price goes up every now and then depending on the price of the crude. So I switched from that because we had a leak every now and then, like
Because
on
the silicone won't adhere. Basically, you're making a wooden frame, like a wooden cube, well, I guess in all purposes, or
Yeah.
rectangle or whatever, and then you're just inlaying sheets of formerly
On
chloroplast,
the
and now
inside.
you're using this new product.
Yeah.
What's
So
the new
now-
product?
So the new product is what people use. They call it Sintras. So
Sintras.
Yeah, Sintra. Yeah.
Never heard of it.
So they're PVC foam boards,
Okay.
and the one that I'm using right here is a 1/4 inch. And if you go above 1/4 inch, that's UV safe. Anyways, but if you go anything lower than 1/4 of an inch, what's gonna happen is it can deteriorate from time. But you're talking about 10 years down the road, so you're not talking about a year or 2 years. That's 10 years for an eighth of an inch.
But like when you're building a lot of these terrariums, because you guys often, the way Species Canada, when you guys are importing animals, you're not importing usually ones. You're not a zoo. You are breeding. You're breeding for long term. You're looking for very specific animals, captive bred animals, new animals to introduce to the hobby and stuff.
Exactly.
So you're usually looking at, I have to build 2 exact ones minimum.
Exactly.
Because you need to have for a pair, because usually you're not housing a lot of the animals together. Right
No,
away.
we're not. No.
Yeah.
Most of the time we have the pairs separately unless they're bonded together. Kind of like this guys right here. They've been long-term captive and they're captive bred, and they're proven breeders already. So might as well keep them together.
And they don't fight at all, really.
They wouldn't,
Yeah,
no.
they're not an animal that would normally
Yeah.
fight. Now, having gone through building a vivarium myself, the big beast, I took it a different approach, and I went and spent some money on all the cork, and I did the foam and all that sort of stuff. But I remember the very first time I came and saw you, and I saw these beautiful worlds that you'd created. How do you make these backgrounds? These are absolutely outstanding. Obviously, these are desert environments, but it would make no difference because you do have a similar type of background in that big Europlatus cage as well.
Yes, yeah, I do. So the main construction of the background is, it's hard to say, but it's basically paper mache and a lot of foam, like the
Expanding foam?
Expanding foam,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, so I use the one that can actually expands up to 2 inches or 2 inches to 3 inches.
Okay.
They call them great stuff.
Yes.
So you can buy them off like hardware stores and
You can
whatnot.
use the ordinary yellow stuff is fine because it's non-toxic once it dries.
Exactly.
Or you can even use the ones that people use for landscaping and ponds and stuff. It's usually black, but honestly, you're going to be covering it anyway, so it's not going to make much of a difference, right?
Exactly, yeah. So a lot of people laugh when I say paper mache, but that's how I get a lot of the textures on them. And then the
Paper
rest,
mache, like we did in school.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do a lot of.
But that also means you don't have to use as much of the foam product. So you're using basically recycled newspaper.
Pretty much.
You know,
Yes. And then I just put something over top of it. So the paper mache would just give me the structure
Okay.
of the texture that I wanted to. But what gives it more rigidness later down the road is by me putting in cement over top of it, which secures the structure itself. It's the older style though,
So these are some of the examples of some of the original builds and stuff or things that you've been working on. You could see the expanding foam is still there, hasn't completely covered, but looks like a professional modeler has come in here, and you're basically you're coating this with like a cement type product with
Yes,
color
I do.
agents added to it, and then are you airbrushing these?
I do. I basically just use a fan brush on all of them.
Okay.
And then I do my highlights and lowlights from there. So everything is not. I don't use any airbrush or anything like that. I just do everything by hand.
And little touches like I remember you telling me you made this little shelf here. This is so you could incorporate adding plants and stuff, so there's good drainage through the plants. You've got a whole shelf that runs the whole length here, but once it's planted up, you wouldn't even see that.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
No, because it's gonna get covered by plants.
And this whole
eventually.
area here would be like a water reservoir.
Exactly. That's where there's a hole right in the middle where this one goes into. So I can actually have the water coming in and out. So that's basically where the filter is gonna go to, what we're planning on.
You've thought this out way more than I could ever even imagine. So this is another one that's just in the beginning processes of getting ready. You're definitely an artist, Ivan. So one of the big factors that you'll note about these enclosures, and I don't know if it really shows up on film, is every enclosure, even though they're just boxes or rectangles, they can all be made to fit the individual animals and characteristics of the animal that he's doing. And Ivan spends incredible amounts of time when he's acquiring a new animal, that he spends a lot of time on the internet looking at images of some of these habitats and environments where these animals come from, and then makes the cages and the environment appropriate for said animal. Now, when you guys started out going ahead with one enclosure, it's easy, you can use anything you want, but all of a sudden when you start getting the collection size that you guys got, this is only a sampling they're seeing today, by doing all these cages and designing them this way, it gives enrichment to the animals, and also is probably a testament to why you and Cheyenne and Species Canada are so successful at the animals that you care for.
Yes. So most of the time, what we do in terms of getting everything prepared for the animal itself is that a couple months down the road, before we decided on to how big of the cage first, we make sure that we get specific taxonomy sheets on where they're found, and then we look into what they look like in there and how the environments look like. So, for example, let's say the Strophurus elderi in here. So they are more of spinifex. So they do live onto the grasses that are found in Australia. So they're purely spinifex living animal. So what it is those grasses that I have in there. That's where they do a lot of their stuff on the daily basis. So they eat there, they poop there, they breed there. They have their eggs around in that same spot most of the time.
So all the little the off-cast of the grass, that would be from the animals moving it around and stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So most of the time at nighttime, if they can't find any food around where they are, they actually go out and about, but they almost never go touch the sand itself. That's the reason why I put those grass all over in the bottom,
Okay.
so that they can actually be more comfortable by traversing the environment.
Well, and out in the outback of Australia, probably where this animal comes, based on the orange colors of there, the sand's probably really, really hot.
It is very, very hot right now.
Now these ones here are like one of the brand new ones you got, but they're from a forest of some type. Lots of upright sticks and branches.
Yes, so this guy's right here is Carphodactylus laevis, and they're from Australia again, and they're from Queensland most of the time. And then they do have a little pocket in Queensland where there is a rainforest, a very, very small pocket. Like it's just a square kilometer, sorry, square miles actually altogether. And what it is that they do have an advantage of having on the area type and both on where the rainforest type is. So I did basically both together of everything merged at the same time. So this one right here is very arid on the very top, so I have enough space for the humidity to come out. And then on the very bottom, you can see that there's a lot of logs, fallen trees, debris.
Leaf litter. Yep. So it keeps it much more moist at the bottom.
Exactly. So the very, very bottom, it's going to be fairly moist because we have the two misting system on both of them. But they can actually get away from it. These guys over here, they don't sleep on the branches. They do sleep in the very bottom. So each one of those logs underneath them you're going to see, a gecko underneath. It's because of the fact that they're nocturnal species. So later down the road, when the light turns off, what's gonna happen is they start climbing up to the very top or midway of the branch, and that's where they're gonna do their hunting. So
And they sit upside down on the branch, pointing downward, right?
They do, yes, yeah. So about 2 to 3 inches from the ground, and then that's where they do most of their hunting. So that's why I have everything on an upright sticks.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys have been inspired. I'm inspired absolutely every time I come here. I think you guys, any one of us could probably, I don't think any of us have that artistic touch that you have with your fan brush, as you so said, but I think any of us can do the research on the animals that we're going to be housing, and we could easily build something pretty simple, safe. This would work for almost any animal. Thanks a lot, Ivan.
Thank you so much, Vince.